Hello everyone. So welcome to the session. This is Jackson here. So today we'll be looking at Introduction to Python and how we are going to work on it. So this will be a short summary of how we are going to work with Python and what are the tools we'll be using throughout the session. So let's dive into it. Starting here on Introduction, we'll be looking at what is Python. And Python is a high-level general-purpose programming language, which means it can interact with your system, it can interact with your software, and it can work alone too. And it was actually designed by Guido van Rossum in 1991. And yeah, behold, it doesn't mean actual Python, it means Python because it's his favorite character of a comedy show. So that's how they name Python. Now, the reason behind it was developed is to make the code more readable and also make the syntax so neat. And that makes Python really different from other programming language syntaxes. Now here we have two different programming versions of Python. One will be Python 2 and other will be Python 3. And sadly, we don't have Python 2 now. We do have, but yeah. So Python have stopped their support for version 2. And now they have officially rolled out for version 3 and upcoming versions to be made stable as in 3. And thus, all the project made in Python 2 has been moved from 2 to 3. So no more Python 2 officially, but still. A lot of companies depend on its previous project in Python. Not a big difference between Python 2 and 3. A few difference, but still, doesn't matter at all. And also, it can work as a scripting language too. Now, moving to the next part, why we need Python and what's the main part of it. It's maintainable, readable, and also it can support all the platforms. It can run on Windows, it can run on Linux, and also it can run on Macintosh. And also name any language or name any platform like Raspberry Pi, which is a microcomputer, Python can even run on it. And also there are a few other places where Python can also directly interact with the hardware. So it is compatible with almost all the hardwares and the softwares that is developed. Also, here, prototyping and agility development was actually so much easier when it comes to Python than other programming languages like Java, where we have to much more work effect on agility and prototyping to make sure that it is scalable and it is refactorable. Then, coming to multiple programming paradigms, Python also supports object-oriented programming and structural programming. Also, it can manage the memory using high-level efficiency languages that can be done in C or C++. Also, on the plus point bright side, we can also develop a test-driven development environment where the code can be tested before delivered to customer. So it's like a iterative testing where one develop and test until it becomes a final product for the release. So these are some of the really important stuff that is actually can be done with Python, and that is why we need Python in the market now. Moving on to the course. So here, introduction to programming. So what I will learn in the course, like how is this course going to go and what are we going to cover in this one. So we saw like what is Python and how Python is going to work, and yeah, those were interesting, good, but what am I going to do with it? Like what am I going to learn? How am I going to start this thing? So in order to do that, we'll be starting this course with introduction to Python, and then we'll see it in deeper. Yeah, sure. So then why we need Python, what are the structure of it, and how we're going to execute this one using interactive shell and also the script files. Also, using some interface like we call Integrated Development Environment IDE on other side. So then, later, we'll also be learning about the data types and the operations here. So a few naming operators and data types that are available in Python are numbers, strings, lists, tuples, dictionaries, and yeah, other core types like complex and other stuffs. Also, then we'll be moving on to the statements like if statements, while, and all the stuff again. So why do we need it? And all the stuff? Yeah, sure. So let's imagine that we want to do a certain step, like if the guy is password and username is correct, then make sure that show him all the posts in the database. So when you log in into Facebook or when you log in into Instagram, if your username and password is correct, now you're going to see all your posts of your friends. And these kind of stuff can be done with the help of statements and syntaxes. Moving on about, as we discussed, functional program is the core backbone of most projects. And we'll be learning how to implement this here in Python. Later, modules and packages. When we are working as a team, how to make sure that we are collaborating with each other and sharing our code to make sure that it runs on everybody's machine and it's not affecting any other's code. And also object-oriented programming to make sure that our project code can be reused in other projects, and also multiple developers can use my code which I have developed. That's why we use object-oriented programming, and that can be done with Python using classes and objects. Then we'll be learning how to read files and what are the main libraries here like math, NumPy, pandas, and all the stuff, which is used as an array, which can be used for doing math operation. And also we have something called operating system, that is OS, which can be imported, and all the tasks like opening a browser, closing an application, starting something that you want to like, if you want to create a bot, everything can be done with the help of Python. So these are few libraries that come into cars. And also some libraries like pandas where you can do data analytics. And also there are a few libraries like matplot and Seaborn where you can do data visualization. And all this stuff are out there, and we'll be learning throughout the class about how we are going to use this. So now coming to the program structure of Python, it is beautiful, it is explicit, and it is actually much more simple than what other programming languages are. And here it's more readable than any other programming languages out there. Now in this class we'll be looking at how to execute the script using a interactive shell, an executable script file, and user interface. And for that, let us imagine that you have installed and set up Python successfully. So in our classes, we'll see detail how we'll be installing and downloading the Python from the py.org. So now I'm using iLinux system. So here I'll be opening my terminal, and inside my terminal, I am going to type Python 3, and this is called Python shell, and it is interactive. So here, if you want to check, like, let me see 1 plus 3, and yeah, simple, Python is working. And then now let me put 5 into 3, and that's 50. So Python is so easy. Let me print my name, hello Jack, and yeah, that's working here. So since everything is fine now, we have successfully executed our first step, executing Python in interactive shell. Now if you are using Windows, make sure to go to Start, click Menu, and just type CMD. Now you'll open up your command prompt and you'll type Python and you will open this thing. Later now, let me close my terminal and go to the second step, that is executing my PyScript. So here, let me open new folder, and I'm just going to type example Python file. So now let me open this folder, example Python file, and now click, and now let me create a new file. So in order to create a new file here, so let me execute this. Okay, so I have created a folder. Now let me go to my programs and open gedit. Since I'm using my Linux, I'll be using text editor, and if you're using Windows, you can also use Notepad. Now I'm just going to go to, so once you have opened your Notepad, you can click save, or you can use the shortcut Control S. You can go to desktop, and you can open the folder that we have created. Now we can click here one.py, and .py is the extension for Python file. Normally for a song or an audio, there would be extension called .mp3, which is MPEG-3, and for a video we'll be having extension like .mp4, .obb, and all these things. So here .py stands for Python file as an extension. Let me save this, and once I have saved this, now I'll be having this Python file set up and running. And now in order to see some output, let me print something here, and I am going to type my name, and yeah, now let me save this, and once I have saved this, you can see the color changing. And if you're using Linux, You're lucky enough to see this, and if you're using Windows, you cannot see the color. So now, once we have created the file, let me minimize this one and now open up the command prompt. So let me open the folder that's in my desktop, and so let me type Python 3 and let me drag and drop the file and then click enter. And once we have clicked enter, we can see the file here. That is so easy, and Python get executed. And also later, now we'll see how to work with an IDE. The IDE that I'm working here is called Visual Studio Code. If you want to download this one, go to vscode.com. So now, the third part, we are going to execute this with IDE, that is called Integrated Development Environment. In order to do that, first we have to download the IDE. So let me go to code.visualstudio.com to download it. You can also go there and download your Windows or Macintosh folder there. So now I have already installed. Let me go here and open this up. So in this Visual Studio Code, I'll be going to the file, save, and then going to desktop and the folder that I've created, that is called example Python file, and I'm going to give 2.py and click save. Once I've clicked it, you can see this. The file logo has been changed to something like the Python logo. And then now you can type print and enter hello Jackson. And then later you can press this button to execute the file and you will see the output as hello Jackson. So that is so simple as how we execute a Python file. And now we are going to build a calculator. So this will be really easy and really helpful to understand how easy is Python. So for creating calculator, we need inputs. That is inputs from the user. So this will be my number 1 and that will be my input. This is my enter your number 1. So this will be my input that I want to get from the user. And the next one will be number 2. That's my second input that I want to get from the user. And that will be enter your second number. And then now, this both are actually integers. Integers are a number that starts from 0 and ends at positive infinity. So int stands from minus infinity to positive infinity. So all the numbers are called as integers. So here I am going to do some addition. So in order to do that, I'll just give number 2 plus number 1. So this will be my addition. So in order to do that, I'll just print addition. So now when we execute this code, this will be enter your number. So I'm going to give 5 and I'm going to 6. And that is addition. Yeah, we are good. Now so later we will be having one more thing called subtraction. And now since it's subtraction, I should minus the 2 numbers. And so let me copy then paste this and change the positive into negative. So now once I run the code, it will give me the output for both addition and subtraction. So 10 minus 5, that's 5. Absolutely. Yeah, so we are good. And here then we are going to do the next one. That is multiplication. So in order to do that, I'm going to change this into star. So this is a simple calculated program that can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and also one more thing called division. Same thing. So we are going to build a calculator that is going to divide all the value here. When I run this program, so it's asking me the number. So I'll give 16 and the input as 5. And now the addition value is 25. That's correct. And minus 5 minus 16, and that's going to be like minus 11. And then multiplication, 5 16s are 80, and then division is 0.3125. And now, in order to make this even more interesting, we are going to ask the users what they want to do. So we are going to do an input user interest. The user interest, so instead of us doing addition, subtraction, multiplication and division, we are going to ask user what they are wishing to do. So what operation want me to do. So in order to make this even more interesting, we are going to give the options in multiple lines. So in order to give that in multiple lines, we'll be using 3 double quotes, and then here we'll use some tab space, and then we'll give addition, and the second for subtraction, and the third for division, and the fifth one for multiplication, and the sixth one for skip. So here, now we are using statements. If user interest is equal to addition, then we are going to do the addition alone. And again, since we have one thing here, in order to make multiple choices, now we'll be using called elif. User interest is equal to subtraction, and we are done. And later, elif user interest is equal to division, then do this. So I'll just go here, we do the division here, and yeah. And then also, if the user chooses multiplication, then it would be this one. And if user interest is equal to multiplication, and do this one. So now also we should tell the user if they enter the wrong input. So here, let me give the else part, which is the ending part, and I'll give wrong input. And that's going to give us the user wrong input. And now we are going to run the software. And then now my input is 5 and my second number is 6. And then now I'm just going to choose add, and that's going to give me addition. Again, now I am going to give 6 and I'm going to give 5 and I'm going to do multiplication. That is going to be like mul, and the answer is 30. So now instead of running the program again and again, I want to make sure that the code is going to run forever and ever. So in order to do that, I am going to do a loop here. A loop is something which is going to do the same thing again and again. So in order to make this, I'll just give while true, and now once I do this, I'll make sure that everything is one step indented, where in Python, indentation is actually something like where we design a program in a structure. Without indentation, this is going to throw me error. So in order to do that, I have made the indentation and I'm just going to run it. So my first number is 5, second number is 6, and I'm going to do skip. And then yeah, that's a wrong input because I haven't given elif for that. And my first number is 5 and my second number is 6, and then I want to do subtraction and the output will be 1. Yeah, we are good. So now what if I want to exit this one? Since I given wrong input, it's not exiting this one. So in order to do that, I will give something like break, and that will be elif user interest is equal to end me, and that would be our 7th operation, end me. So here again, I just last time missed something called skip. So now even I'll give that condition too. Elif user interest is equal to skip, and yeah, now we're just going to give skip successful, skip successfully. Yeah, so we are good. And then now enemy is going to do this, and else wrong input. Now let me go back to the code. We are designing a calculator that is going to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So in order to do that, we need 2 numbers. Those are actually numbers. So in order to do that, we have given integers, and then we have getting input from the user. And then later, we are asking the user what operation they want to perform. If it is addition, it's going to add. If it's subtraction, it's going to do the subtraction. If it's division, and so if it's multiplication, it's going to multiply. If it is skip, it's going to skip it. And if you want to end it, we are going to give end me, and that's going to end the loop. Yeah, so successfully we have done it one. And so now I'm going to run the code and check what will be the output. So my number 1 is 5, number 2 is 6, and I want to add. That's going to give me the answer. So my number 1 is 2 and my number 1 is 3. I don't want to do anything, just end me please. E-N-E me? Okay, 1, 2, end me. And since I have given NV, the program has been terminated. So we have successfully created this program and we have successfully made this one. So now, in order to make this executable, we should make this even more interesting. So we need a software called PyInstaller. So I'm just going to give Python 3 -m PyInstaller. So since we have made this application successfully, and this is just a code, we are going to convert this into a exe if it's a Windows or an executable file if it's in a Linux. So in order to do that, we'll be installing the software called PyInstaller, and then for that we'll be using, so once I do that, it will download and install the software. Yeah, and we have successfully installed the software, and now we'll be opening our command prompt and typing PyInstaller. So since this is Linux, I'll give Python 3 -m PyInstaller. Since we have successfully created the software of calculator,